Hey everybody, Crazy Red. Getting a little tuned up here. This is part 3 of my Crystal Skulls, Blood Moons, and Kalalau Valley trip. I don't know how many videos it's going to take, to tell you the truth, or sessions. Trying to keep them down to about under half an hour. But we left off with me finding the crystal skull on the blood moon, of the blood moon prophecies. And this was back in April of 2014, I think it was. And I've done enough research on it. It was the first of what many believe was the 4 blood moons of the blood moon prophecy. And I found this crystal skull that was broken, which I later came to realize that it was me who broke it. And it had this very auspicious, what would you call it? I mean, I've described it as having like your own personal voodoo doll. Okay, it just really freaked me out how this thing was all black and broken and fucked up in all the same exact places that my face was broken and fucked up. And for 3 weeks I'd had a fracture in my jaw, which was still manageable, but after unearthing this crystal, within just a few days, my entire face had swollen up, and I couldn't drink water, I couldn't eat, and I was dying. Literally dying. My face was filling up with staph, was what was happening. And it got so bad that I couldn't hike out. And anybody who's ever been into the valley will tell you that even being a fully mature adult and being 100% healthy, being in the valley can wear you out. But to have an injury, to already be sort of weak from that, and then having all of a sudden this infection set in, not to mention the psychological trip going on with the whole finding of this crystal and the boys, and where I found it, and all the weird shit tied into that. It was pretty heady stuff. And so eventually I did get someone to help me, and we made a call out to the boats, and they radioed for a chopper, and a chopper did come and pick me up and chopper me out of the valley. And I took the crystal with me. I was honestly terrified, to tell you the truth, because at this point, even though I hadn't put all the pieces together yet, I knew something was up. And I was actually nervous about flying in this chopper with this crystal and thinking, oh my God, this, halfway there, like, not even halfway there, like as soon as that thing got in the air, I was like, oh fuck, what if I'm gonna die right here, right now with this freaking crystal? I mean, it was like that. And I got to town, and I was in the hospital for 5 days, people. I was in the hospital, and they had to knock me out, wire my jaw shut while they drained all this pus out of my face, and then they kept me on antibiotics for 5 days with my jaw wired shut before even releasing me. And I took, with me, as always, I took the time to research on the internet and to produce some videos, and I ended up putting out videos about the crystal skull before I even got out of the hospital. I had some stuff out there because I was on the internet, and I was desperate. I was desperately trying to figure out who would put that crystal there, and how the hell did this happen. And to be honest with you, there was a lot more going on than just that, than just the physical pain. When I got out of the hospital, it was like I could just feel everybody that I knew and where they were. And I couldn't go anywhere without having these sort of precog feelings. I refer to it as spider sense. Okay, like my spider sense kicked on after that. And I knew something was up. You know, I just knew something was definitely fucking up. And everywhere I went, I kept running into people that were curious, somewhat excited, and yet at the same time a little nervous about me. And it was weird because everywhere I would go, people would be like, dude, we were just talking about you like 5 minutes before you got here. And here you are. And so that kind of crazy, weird shit just started happening a lot. And I couldn't eat solid food. My jaw was wired shut. I didn't really have any place to go to really sort of heal up from it. And the word had gotten out, which was my own fault. But you know, it was in my wanting to know what the fuck do I do now kind of shit. That was the whole reason why I used my social media to sort of put the word out. But it didn't take long before I was walking in Wainiha and had people coming up to me going, yo, Red, where's the crystal skull? You know, the whole island knew that shit. And after about 3 weeks of having my jaw wired shut and feeling like a complete, absolute, total enigma, I left. I went to Maui. And then from Maui, I went to mainland. And to tell you the truth, my whole flow got fucked up after that. Like it was a struggle to figure out what to do, where to go. Nobody was taking credit for the crystal. And I did ask that goofball in Santa Cruz if it was one of his. And he said no. He saw a picture of it on the internet. I eventually would go track him down and present him with the actual crystal to see what he had to say about it. But we'll get to that later. But the bottom line was I was in bad shape, people. My jaw was not healing. I had cut the wires after about 3 weeks of not eating solid foods, but I still had not had the braces and stuff taken out. So this metal was like in my mouth for months. And I had to go back home to my family. And I ended up staying at a friend's house in a shack. And just, you know, weird shit kept happening, to be honest with you. All my electronics started acting super weird on me. And then while I was staying in Pennsylvania, actually with a friend of mine, staying at his house, there was this one night where I was at the house by myself. And at this point, I was convinced something was definitely up, but there was nothing I could do about it. And I was lucky to have just a place to rest, and I did. So I just rested and played in the studio at the house, because there was a music studio there, and just produced videos and just hung out. And didn't really try to make anything happen, other than just waiting out to get to the doctor, which was going to take me a month to get my stuff, the braces taken out of my mouth. And I was taking antibiotics all the time. And I pretty much, even though it was summertime and all my friends were partying, I kind of had to take it easy because I couldn't party. I couldn't drink. And I was like, you know, taking pain pills and shit, which I'm not really into pills, but at the time it was like the only thing I could do, which was just like get high and sleep. And I had all kinds of crazy dreams, all kinds of weird shit going on with me. But the one thing that really stood out over everything else was one night at the house by myself, there was a power surge. And I'm just sitting here watching this video on YouTube, and all of a sudden, all these alarms start going off. There's smoke coming out of places and lights flickering on and off. And it was like something straight up out of like Poltergeist or something, I swear to God. And it freaked me the fuck out. And I went outside, and it was the whole neighborhood was freaking out. But there was sirens going off, all kinds of crazy shit happening. Light bulbs exploding, like the whole nine. And then it kind of stopped, but it was still happening. Like there was still lights flickering on and off, and half the power was out, and there were these alarms going off. It was actually the stove alarm. I eventually had to go and pull the stove out of the wall because it kept making this horrendous beeping sound. And I called the owners of the house and told them I was freaking out. It looked like there was some kind of power surge, power outage. And then come to find out, there was a power surge, and it fried the circuit box at our house that I was staying at. And it was kind of strange because I had already been experiencing all this weird shit with electronics. And then for this to happen on top of it all, this like huge power surge blows out the house power, and it didn't just like go dead, okay? That was the other thing about it that was so weird, was there was partial power, but like you would turn one light on and then another light would go off, or you would plug something in and something would turn on somewhere else. It was like the house was like literally haunted, like straight up nonstop poltergeist type action. And another one of those, I get chicken skin just thinking about that shit. An electric company had to come out. They had to plug in this box for a week, and the only good thing that came out of all that was my friends got a bunch of shit done on their house for free because the electric company had to pay for all that. And then I ended up selling their house for them, which was on the market, and it had been on the market for a while. So I ended up, it all ended up working out for them, and I ended up, managing to heal up that summer. And then I went to Nashville to hang out where I'm at right now, KRS Studios, which is a studio that my friend has in his basement, and I've helped contribute to some of the stuff here over the years. And me and my friends, we get together here and we play music here, and we call it KRS Studios because, well, we won't get into all the details of that right now. Even us KRS mercenaries like to keep certain things quiet. So yeah, I came back to Nashville to hang out in the studio, which is one of my haunts for sure. And was just hanging out, letting my jaw heal up. It was still infected. I was still taking antibiotics. It was still a nightmare, and my jaw had now been broken and was infected for longer than it should have been. And the doctors were starting to worry if the MRSA would ever go away, because at that point they had diagnosed me with MRSA, and that my jaw could just continuously get infected for the rest of my life. And it wasn't looking good because it was a head injury, and the jaw is connected very closely to the ear and the brain, and so that whole part, like my ear, my neck, all that was inflamed, and they were worried. They were afraid that the MRSA could get into my brain. So it wasn't looking good for me, and so I figured I'm just going to spend my final days here in the studio playing music. And that was when there was another blood moon. And it was the second blood moon, I believe, or the third blood moon in the series of blood moons that there was to be the 4 blood moons. And at this point, some interesting things that happened during that time, kind of relevant, is one, I almost went back to the islands. I was going to go back to the islands to bury the Chrystal, which was something people had told me to do from the get-go, for this particular blood moon in October. And I couldn't do it. I just had so much fear and anxiety about it. I had to cancel my ticket. And on the day I canceled my ticket, the transporter outside the house exploded 5 minutes after I freaking hit the button to cancel my ticket. And that spooked me out because of the problems I've been having with electronics and the electrical blowout that had happened in Pennsylvania. So I was like, Jesus Christ, is this stuff just going to keep following me around for the rest of my life? power surges, and to be honest with you, one thing I've definitely become acutely aware of is that this whole experience was extremely stressful. Okay, when I say I was fearful, I was afraid at times, that's like an understatement. Like, I thought the right thing to do would be to go back and bury the Chrystal, and yet the minute I booked a ticket to go back to Hawaii, it was just nonstop, just stomach in a total knot, and still sick, still trying to recover from the injury. When I cancel my ticket, the power blows out for like 3 or 4 days. The power was out here, and then the power came back on, and one of our buddies, we call him the mix master, he came up to record with us for the Blood Moon, and so we jokingly started calling it the Blood Moon sessions, and we were working on a song, Fool's Gold, at the time, and I was really. And here's the thing about the guy who broke my jaw, okay? Like I said, it was a kind of a Fight Club mentality kind of thing when it happened. And even though we don't talk about Fight Club and all that shit, whatever, they made a movie about it. So I don't really see how they can point out that on me. But me and him weren't enemies, okay? We were friends. And there was a lot of stuff going on at the time, but we were both rowdy that night, and we got into it. And long story short, he ended up breaking fracturing my jaw. But, he felt bad about it afterwards, and he was nervous too that me and my brother were going to come after him and get him somehow and bash his head in one night in revenge over what happened. And so me and him did what Hawaiians refer to as HoNo. And, it's the American slang term for it would be burying the hatchet. And some people ask how this works. And I'll tell you how it works. In order to really do HoNo with somebody, you have to actually physically be in their presence. And you have to actually stay in their presence in order for the both of you to have the emotional release of whatever the anger, stress, and it's hard for people to do this, okay? Some people just would rather never speak to you again than to apologize to you for what they do to you. And even though they may be completely guilty of doing shit wrong to you, they for whatever reasons may feel like, in some cases, they feel trapped, like they can't actually apologize to what they did to you, because to do that would mean they would lose faith with whoever's rescuing them from the fact that you want to kick their ass. There's a whole bunch of shit I could go into right now when it comes right down to this, but the bottom line is HoNoPoNo is when two people who have a grudge or who are vexed by each other's presences. A lot of times people who were once close had a falling out, and there's still a lot of resentment there, okay? Hawaiians would make those people sit together, like facing each other, like literally sit next to each other, Indian style, facing each other, and have to look at each other. And Hawaiians put their foreheads together and do this aloha thing where they share breath. And so this was like what you did. This was the actual ritual of HoNoPoNo, and I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for too much huna, but that's how we did it. We sat down, Indian style, across from each other. We did aloha a bunch of times, and there was this huge, and I'm experiencing it right now because I'm reliving it, but this huge emotional release that comes with HoNoPoNo. And so anyone out there who's having these kind of difficulties, I strongly urge you try to do HoNoPoNo with people you have these sort of resentments or things that could lead to resentments, because it's really important to have these emotional releases. And you can't just like text somebody or send them a letter or send them some fucking flowers, okay? You have to like literally be in that person's physical presence. There needs to be a physical, chemical, and spiritual reaction. And then once you do it, you both have these incredible emotional releases. There's usually some crying, some hugging, a lot of forgiveness. And, some people have a real hard time doing this. But me and my friend that day really didn't have that hard of a time doing this. One, we had both been on the island long enough that we kind of knew what we were in for, okay? And in that sense, I mean, we started a fight club for a reason, and it was because we were tired of having to fight the Hawaiians all the time. So we just fought amongst ourselves to stay tough, and the Hawaiians actually respected that. And, that's why, one of the reasons why I'm Crazy Red. It's Crazy Red Brothers, you know what I'm saying? We'll fight till we're burger. But the point in all this, why I'm talking about the guy who broke my jaw, is because on this blood moon in October, when we were doing the blood moon sessions, I was still hurting from this injury and was kind of pissed. I was over it. I was frustrated. I didn't want to fucking deal with it anymore. And I definitely remember just being mad at this person again, even though we had our own HoNo and everything. And we were cool. I mean, we were cool. We hung out. He was actually feeding me, while my jaw was wired shut, hanging out at his camp. So it's like, me and dude, we're cool, okay? But there was definitely, at that moment in time, some definite fuck, man. Can't believe I'm still dealing with this shit. And we got through the sessions, we watched the blood moon, and then I got a phone call from a friend of mine telling me that this person had died. And I gotta be honest with you, I feel horrible even saying this, but I know that a part of me was really pissed at him during that blood moon session. And I do feel kind of I've had people straight up ask me, do you feel responsible for what happened with Lauren? And I'm like, well, I mean, technically, no, I had nothing to do with it, but spiritually, maybe, I was definitely mad at him at the time that he passed away. And then I felt horrible afterwards, of course, and didn't really mean any actual, intent like that. I mean, honestly, I would have been happy, karmically speaking, if he had just gotten his own black eye or broken jaw or something. But he already had a broken jaw, and that was one of the things we had talked about during our HoNoPono, was how he had his jaw broken and how it was going to suck, and we did share a bottle of whiskey and just talk shit and smoke some weed, and we hung out and we did the HoNoPono prayer together, and just, and it was very, I wish I could get more of that kind of, from people these days, just, setting it straight with us. And in telling this part of the story, I will tell you that there is more to it that will come later. But that really did happen. The guy who broke my jaw, that eventually would be tied to the crystal skulls and the blood moons, died on a blood moon when I was not stoked about the shit. And that's one of the reasons why, I don't mess around at all now, ever, with bad karmic energy, especially during moons and shit. That doesn't mean I don't fucking hate some people, okay? I definitely have felt some hatred over the years, but I tried to stay really consciously aware of it and how I use it. And some of the stuff I do actually is to release that energy without actually using that part of my energy. Because if I focus my energy that way, I do believe that I could hurt people. Now, for what it's worth, a lot of weird stuff happened with my friend at the time, and I was on the other side of the planet. So I didn't have anything to do with him passing away, and it is still sort of a mystery. what happened to him, but he did die suddenly. He did die from an infection. And the other thing that happened is my jaw healed after that. And that's the truth. My jaw completely healed. Within 24 hours, my jaw was healed. And we will talk more about that in the next episode. It's Krazy Red.
1, 2